Hey, welcome to UX in 5. It's day 3. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of UX. So yesterday you heard a little bit about why people object to doing UX, the most common 5 reasons. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about, okay, all these objections, why would you even bother? You'd think there'd have to be a pretty good case, wouldn't you? All right, so for today, I'm going to actually try something new, and I'm going to share some visual aids. Aren't you excited? So I'm going to put this up on the screen. I hope you can see this. So first of all, I want you to kind of look at the graph that I have here. Basically, this is tracking two things throughout the development cycle of any product or service. So there's requirements phase, development phase, and then launch. And as you go through that process, the cost of making changes goes up. I think that's something we can probably all agree with, right? Now, at the same time, as you go through that process, the number of design alternatives goes down, right? So if you are trying to make a change at any point, you're going to have a different combination of these variables. So let's say you want to decide what you're going to build and you're in requirements phase. You have lots of alternatives you could design, and the cost of actually changing your design is quite low. Once you get into development, at some point there's a crossover here where you now have invested sufficiently in your product or service that it really starts to not be worth it to make design changes. So the idea here is that the earlier you can understand who your users are and what you want to design for them, the lower cost it will be to create that design, and the more you can target to a specific user group. Now, what often happens is UX is brought in very, very late. And so by that point, if something's already been coded, for example, there is quite a cost of making a change. So this graph is often used as a way to make the case that UX done early is in fact low cost, relatively speaking. Whereas if you go all the way to launch and find out that your product does not work for its user group, you have a really high cost of change. So let me give you some other financial benefits of doing UX. As you can see here, this is sort of looking at some of the top firms that do UX. So think in terms of like Apple, Google, what have you. Studies have shown that the top 10 leaders in user experience design triple the returns of other companies in the S&P, if you're familiar with that stock market. And then a common rule of thumb here is that for every $1 that's invested in UX, particularly early in a development cycle, has up to $100 in return. In other words, lower support costs, fewer complaints, all of these wonderful things. Even reduced effort throughout development because you are more targeted with what you're building. And then finally, sort of in contrast, when you look at the financial outcomes of companies that do not prioritize UX, you can see they tend to underperform with less cumulative return than firms that are better in terms of building user-centered products. We use 3 key activities in UX: personas, which I'm going to talk about in a later session, but a pretty famous study has shown that persona-based design actually causes up to 4 times less rework during development than non-persona-based design. Wireframing, which is, you're familiar with us doing wireframes or early static designs, creates better estimates. It reduces clarification. So these are really sort of time savings and cost savings. And then finally, the last one is it actually reduces bugs and rework after launch. And then finally, usability testing, another key UX activity, 90% reduction in support costs. I mean, that's pretty dramatic, right? So there you have it. That's 5 minutes today on the benefits of UX. I think you'll agree that they are considerable, especially from a financial perspective. All right, I'll catch you next time on UX in 5.